Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to the second live interaction of the NPTEL MOOCs course on economic growth and development. We already have a few questions with us. Let me begin with these questions. Sabir Gabriel asks, help me to register for exams. Registration for exams, Sabir, is already over. So I'm afraid you will not be able to register for the exams now. However, the technical team will be able to answer your questions if you're putting them on the portal regarding this. Atul Krishna Ghadge asks, what is expected from the effect of corona on economic growth and development in case of India? Well, I will not, this is probably not the right juncture for me to be answering questions on corona and the effect of corona on economic growth and development. However, as you can all see that economic activities within the country have reduced drastically because of the lockdown, and because there is a contraction of economic activities, it will definitely have a severe effect on the rate of capital formation within the economy as well as the gross domestic product of the economy. Edward asks the question that Edward has issues with regard to catching up with some of the concepts in the presentation. I would suggest that you continue to ask questions regarding the topics that you find difficult, and then the TAs as well as I can chip in, and then we can try to help you with finding answers to your questions. Govind Kumar has a question on how can we relate economic growth to regional planning. What are the factors for economic growth of a town or a city that should be considered while preparing a master plan? Now, if you look at from the courses, from the classes that you must have gone through on economic development, regional planning and development, you will see that of course regional planning is central to economic growth and development, because in fact Hirschman's thesis and all of those the theories with regard to balanced and unbalanced development that you have seen as part of this course, you would see that a whole lot of planning goes into deciding where to allot resources as far as development is concerned. So in that sense, the concept of economic growth and development is central to regional planning and vice versa. For example, in the context of India, you would see that often we take examples of poorest districts, 100 poorest districts or 150 poorest districts, where certain welfare programs such as the MGNREGA program or various other dedicated welfare programs are introduced. This is primarily, so the identification of poorest districts is one of the important indicators of where we think in terms of regional planning. What are the factors for economic growth of a town or a city that should be considered while preparing a master plan? I guess this is this does not fall within the scope of this course. When we are probably what you're trying to ask is about urban planning within countries. And for example, in India we have this with a very ambitious plan of smart cities and so on and so forth, that requires a collaboration of various kinds of people from various disciplines, including economists, and that requires planning in various domains. So therefore, I think this falls beyond the scope of what we are doing as part of the economic growth and development course. Rasika Patil asks, do you think the lockdown period has positive impact on economic growth? I don't see a positive impact on economic growth. Of course, we are saving lives by imposing a lockdown because we are limiting the spread of the disease. So in that sense, we are of course saving lives. But there are trade-offs with regard to the lockdown, because it means that large sections of the society are trapped in in low levels of employment and income creation, which means that there is a stop to economic activities, and in that sense there is a negative impact on economic growth over a period of time. Whereas of course we are saving lives in terms of stopping the spread of the disease. Okay, Rasika has another question on will Industrial Revolution 4.0 be sustainable in Indian economy? I am not sure if I have got this question right. What kind of an industrial revolution are you referring to? If you can specify more about this, then probably we can get the discussion ahead. What educational changes would you suggest for economic growth of our Indian economy? Well, education is an important component of economic growth because obviously it caters to human capital needs of a country. And also when you have, since you will be reading through the human development part, you would see that human capital as well as human development are largely influenced by the levels of education of a country. And with respect to India, there remains a lot to be done as far as primary and secondary school education is concerned, as well as higher education. However, if you look at the school enrollment rates, you would see that while enrollment rates in India have increased over a period of time, over the period of last 10-15 years, the number of dropouts in India has also been increasing. Now that just shows that we are not able to retain our children within the education system because of the various failures within the primary and the secondary education system. So therefore, there needs to be a lot of focus on the quality of education within the primary and secondary level of education so that we do not see a number of dropouts. So that's one. And of course, there are other class, caste and gender implications of the failure of the education system. The marginalized sections of the society do not have adequate access to education even at the primary and the secondary levels even today, and that is something that we need to prioritize as far as our education policy is concerned. Quality is the thrust as far as education policy is concerned, and there needs to be a lot of focus there. Do you think digitization would bring some kind of unemployment? Which kind of digitization are you referring to? Of course, digitization in terms of bringing in more efficiency within the system is a positive change, and to that extent digitization leads to better technological efficiency within the system. However, there are certain trade-offs with regard to digitization if we are displacing labor by using more and more capital intensive technologies. However, we cannot have a very generalized view about digitization within the Indian economy. We need to be more sector specific with regard to what do we mean when we are saying digitization. For example, within the rural economy, you would see that there has been a thrust on digitization with regard to transfer of funds when there are workers, manual workers who are being employed in for social welfare programs. And to a large extent, this has brought down inefficiency within the system by enabling quicker transfer of funds, particularly in the form of wages to workers' accounts. But that is not to say that there is no corruption within the system. There are no leakages within the digitized economy as well. There are leakages even when digitization has been introduced. Although one of the important motivations for introducing digitization is to reduce leakages and inefficiencies, the biggest challenge for a country like India is regarding how we can minimize leakages in spite of the digitization, and that is a major worry. Unemployment, of course, if we are using more of capital intensive technologies at the cost of labor, it may lead to various kinds of unemployment. Guddu Kumar has a question on which type of questions are asked in exam and what is the question level difference between assignment and exam. Both the assignments and the final exams are basically multiple choice questions. You are requested to look through the guidelines on exams the questions that are given to you on the portal. Sivaram is asking about sub-themes within this course. I am not quite sure if I have understood your question, but probably you are trying to say that you're trying to look up research themes within this broader issue of growth and development. Of course, there are a lot of things that can be taken up. Within the discipline of economics, growth and development have gone different ways. There is a separate paper on economic growth these days, there is a separate paper on economic development. You can pick up issues on economic growth with focus on gross domestic product, or focus on various components of growth. Let us say you can work on technical efficiency, technological efficiency. If you want to work on human capital, you can work on human capital issues. But if you want to focus on human development issues, you can very well work on social welfare programs. To begin to give you one example, you could also pick up various other choices. For example, someone may want to work at the intersection of human rights and human development, which is also being covered within the domain of development economics quite a lot today. You may take up issues on labor markets or nutrition and food security, or you could take up issues on ecological security. These are important topics that can be covered, sub-themes that can be covered within the larger domain of economic growth and development. Okay, Nisha has a question on not being able to complete assignments due to health issues. Can she complete them now and submit all combined? Please put this question to the technical team, they will be able to answer this question. Okay, Arun Kumar has a question on, is there going to be a fall in the Israeli economic system? I don't get the question right, but probably he's asking that if economic system, if there are failures within the economic system, then is there going to be a reduction in salaries? Is that what you're asking? Generally, when there are failures within the economic system, we look at indicators. What are the indicators that we are looking at? One is, of course, low levels of GDP formation. If GDP formation within a country has declined over a period of time, or is declining, if we are looking at economic activities getting reduced, if we are looking at rates of investment reducing, if rates of household savings are also reducing, then we say that there is a reduction in economic activities within a country. And then, of course, the implications of reduced economic activity means that there is some kind of a financial emergency within the country. So therefore, we talk about recessions and depressions and so on and so forth. These are one of the important indicators to say that the country is moving towards recession or depression. So this is what you are trying to ask probably when you are saying that there are failures within the economic system. So these failures within the economic system again can be of various kinds. We need to focus on what exactly are you trying to look at. For example, in a wartime economy, we know that there is a lot of transfer of resources from basic needs of from meeting basic needs of people towards meeting war needs, and therefore that leads to a different kind of a scenario altogether. Similarly, if a certain economy is faced with different kinds of natural calamities, then you know that resources are being diverted from basic needs to meeting emergency needs with regard to natural calamities. That also leads to different kinds of consequences. So we need to focus on what are these failures that we are looking at, and then we can find a better answer to these questions. Okay, so Professor Sandeep Patil has a question on please put light on major changes required in student startups post-COVID. This is beyond the scope of this course. I am afraid I will not be able to throw light on this question. There are some incomplete questions showing up here. if you could finish the questions, then complete the questions, then I can answer better. Okay, so how can economy recover from this great lockdown? What can be the possible solutions? And as a prospective economist, how can we help our country to fight against this pandemic? Now, this is a very unprecedented situation for countries across the world. This total lockdown of economic activities, and one of the best ways to come out of this lockdown is obviously for is the way I see it is for governments, federal governments, state governments, as well as the central government, to provide some kind of a package to different sectors of the economy. There are, for example, there are salaried sections of the society, there are manual workers, there are businesses of different kinds, and in a lockdown situation such as this, all sectors of the economy gets affected. And given the state of vulnerability that each sector is in, the implications are larger. So, and in a society which is already very unequal, I think there needs to be a lot of focus on providing immediate relief to the most vulnerable sections of the society, and that of course includes the marginalized workers, the manual workers, the daily wage workers, who need a package from the governments across center and the state governments to be able to survive the lockdown situation. And beyond the lockdown, the central government, for example, the RBI has announced moratoriums on interest rate payments for various kinds of activities, and this is a welcome step. These are certain kinds of support packages that the banking system as well as the governments need to provide to various sectors of the economy to be able to overcome this situation. This could as well be a short-run phenomenon, and in the long run, given the amount of support that governments can give to their businesses, we can see some kind of a turnaround in the long run. FDI restrictions from China. What changes will the FDI restrictions from China bring to India? This is an emerging scenario, and we need to wait and watch with regard to this. Which are the growth sectors apart from pharmaceuticals? Now, the services industry was actually one of the fastest growing sectors within India. And the post-lockdown scenario, we are going to see some kind of we are already seeing a major fallout as far as this services sector is concerned. And the services sector does not necessarily mean the software industry. It means all those people who are employed in malls and various outlets. You could see a rise in employment as far as those sectors were concerned. But post demonetization and post lockdown, we might see a further deterioration of the employment scenario as far as this sector is concerned. So, as of now, it is hard to say anything about that. Okay, which type of people will be most affected during the lockdown period? During the lockdown period, obviously the daily wagers, the daily wage workers, and also the assetless people who do not have much to depend on as far as the savings are concerned, are badly hit. There is often this argument on that governments provide food to the daily wage workers and therefore they have nothing to worry about. But food meets only one part of the expense. There are expenses with regard to medication, the health particularly, and we would see a lot of penury situation arising among the marginalized section, among the daily wage workers, among the manual workers of the country, particularly because of rising expenses of health, and within the public health system, we still do not have enough avenues for for accommodating large sections of the population, for meeting the most basic needs. So therefore, these are definitely the sections that will get badly affected. Which businesses will be seen growing and which businesses will shrink? The hospitality industry in India is badly affected now, because all those businesses which required the presence of people, which catered to people directly, will definitely be the ones most badly affected. For example, malls, cinema, restaurants, small outlets, the smaller outlets where we see a lot of consumer presence, direct presence of people for receiving services, are the ones that will badly get affected, and that constitutes a whole that constitutes a large section of the population. Okay. Why is the economic growth of developing countries more than developed countries? I am not sure I understood this question. Please elaborate on that. Is it wholly due to the convergence concept? Again, I did not understand the question. Please elaborate on this. Anshi Tahil, can you elaborate on your question on why is the economic growth of developing countries more than developed countries? I am not sure I got that question. Okay, why is India having more than 5% GDP growth rate and USA less than this? Are you referring to some particular year? Is this uh, is this with respect to certain year? 5% GDP growth which year, and USA less than this in which year? However, in respect to this, I must tell you that the GDP computation rates, the formulaic changes, the mode of computation of GDP is different across different countries. A 5% GDP growth rate for India may not be comparable to the rate that you are referring to in USA, because we need to look at the purchasing power parity rates. And therefore, I would since if you recall the first few lectures of this course, you would know that the most important indicator to focus on is probably the GNP per capita at purchasing power parity. If you look at that, probably you would see that USA has a better rate than India has. Any advice to students regarding their choice of sector for career? I'm not sure if this is the right forum to be able to answer that question. And given the state of uncertainty in the economy right now during the COVID situation, I would suggest we focus on what we are doing now and wait and see how the situation unfolds in the next few months to come. what impact on inflation? Harsha Tiwari is asking what impact on inflation. Are you referring to the impact of COVID on inflation? Is that what it is? See, the general level of price within the economy right now, if you look at there's a lot of scarcity within the economy, induced scarcity within the economy because of restrictions on movement of goods and services across the states. So in that sense, there is a lot of price variability as far as the common goods are concerned, economic goods are concerned. There's a lot of price variability. As of now, I will not be able to comment on the general level of inflation right now, but of course, there is a lot of scarcity induced price variability across states. If you look at food price inflation, or whether you look at mostly food prices, you would see that there's a lot of variability. But this is this is mostly due to the restrictions imposed on the movement of goods and services, and therefore I would suggest we wait and watch with regard to the price variabilities within the economy. Ways to boost the Indian economy after the lockdown. As I said, there needs to be a lot of government expenditure and government investments in different sectors. That a government needs to announce some kind of a package, whether it is at the central government level or the state government level. Government needs to come up with a package such that people increase their levels of spending, economic activities increase, and that's the surest way to do so. There needs to be some kind of a fiscal stimulus within the economy to be able to achieve that. What do you say on the education sector? Will it be able to overcome the pandemic, specifically finishing schools in IT domain? Education sector has been again very badly affected because of the pandemic. There are going to be large scale delays as far as graduating students are concerned, providing education to students are concerned. I am not, although there is a lot of thrust and focus on online education, I am not sure how much online education can contribute as far as knowledge creation is concerned. It can never, online education can never completely take the place of classroom education. So in that sense, it will have an adverse effect. What will be the effect of COVID-19 on the unorganized sector of India? Definitely bad. The unorganized sector currently is the worst affected, and it may continue to be the worst affected for a very long period of time to come. And this is where we need to have a stimulus, because the unorganized sector of India, for all its name, is also the biggest employment provider in this country. And employment obviously leads to income creation within the economy, and that further leads to the rate of savings within the economy. So employment is the key, and given the fact that the unorganized sector is in a disarray because of the COVID situation, there needs to be a stimulus to the unorganized sector, and it can only come with the announcement of some kind of a package by the governments. Which areas will be good for startups in near future? I'm not sure I can answer this question now. This is the time for fiscal stimulus. The government needs to spend. Government expenditure in different sectors need to increase, and of course there is a lot of resource constraint within the economy, and it is a tough time for the Indian economy. There are almost no avenues because of the complete lockdown, there are almost no avenues of generating more financial resources. However, whatever be the resources, we need to spend responsibly. However, fiscal stimulus is the only way out. Governments need to spend in whatever way they can to create demand within the economy. How can our government effectively manage saving lives on one hand and boosting of economy after the COVID crisis is over? What are the steps that the government should take to boost the economy? Saving lives within the economy, of course, because of the lockdown and the restriction of movements, the surveillance system that has been in the disease surveillance system, I mean that is in place, needs to be utilized effectively to ensure restriction of COVID affected people in their zones. For example, the recent identification of green zone, orange zone, red zone is a good start, and there needs to be proper surveillance at the most disaggregated level. The federal governments need to take their disease surveillance systems very seriously, and I'm sure from what we see now, some of the states are actually doing a fabulous job as far as that is concerned. And there needs to be a staggered removal of restrictions depending upon the reports coming from the ground level, from the district level, from the panchayat level, and there needs to be a proper surveillance at that level, and slowly we will get back to normalcy, hopefully. Many small business firms which are totally dependent upon daily incomes, but they could not open it in this lockdown. Yes, there are small businesses, small and medium scale industry, medium scale enterprises have been very badly hit, and this is where the governments need to announce a package, maybe some kind of moratorium on their rents or on their electricity rent payments, their interest rate payments, if there are bank loans. These are the ways to help the small businesses, and the community also needs to step in small little ways for helping the small businesses. What are the remedial measures to below poverty line people living in India? Government social welfare programs need to step in a very big way. As far as food distribution is concerned, we have immense buffer stocks of food grains within the country that can be immediately distributed to the migrants and to the people living below the poverty line. We could also provide help through the public health systems, maybe more resources provided to primary health centers and to the sub centers to be able to take care of the health of people. People spending time on PhD research, struggling for basic requirements of life. It is true, that's the employment scenario in the country today. we have very high levels of unemployment, and however, research avenues as far as post PhD students are concerned have increased in so many different ways. You can put this question on the portal and then we can have a detailed discussion over this. State of this academic year all over India, beyond the scope of this course, please, if you want to have a discussion on this, put it on the portal. Please stick to questions that are a part of this course. Okay, so thank you for being present for the live interaction. If you have more questions, please feel free to put them on the portal. If interested to discuss about research issues, you may write to me personally at my email ID, and hopefully I'll be able to respond to you all. I think I've answered enough COVID related questions. If you could come back to the course related questions, and I'll be happy to answer. We'll end it.